Excellent. So hello everyone, and welcome to our session today on making the most of your time with Google Calendar. So my name's Samantha Garrett from Using Technology Better. Some of you will have seen me in previous training sessions. For some of you, it might be your first time. I can see we've got some people that have just joining recently. So if I've not met you before, welcome. If I have met you before, welcome back. And there are some familiar names in the virtual room as well. So I can see those intros are coming in, so that's fabulous. Marty Joe Spade, Mini Woolies project coordinator. I'd love to know, what is that? Mini Woolies, are they like the little mini toys, or is something else, Marty? Let me know.
No, it's Mini Woolworths, so it's an actual store for children with disabilities.
Wow.
For educational purposes only.
There you go. Well, I learned something. I didn't even know that existed. That's fabulous. So,
yeah.
So the children come and learn about how being in that like shopping experience.
So it's actual real registers, real groceries, play money, and it's all for educational purposes. We build a mini Woolworths within the school for disabilities.
That is amazing. Oh, yeah. Thanks for letting us know. I'd love to know in the chat, if that's new to any of you, let me know too. I'm the only one fascinated by that. So nothing to do with Google Calendar, but amazing just to hear what goes on. Thanks, Marty, for sharing. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so let's do this. Now, as for those that have been in a session before will know, I do love to see your cameras on, and I'm seeing quite a few already, which is wonderful. How I train is I watch you, like I look at your faces when I'm training as if you're in the room in front of me, and I have the chat. So thanks, a couple more people have popped theirs on. That's lovely. I have the chat open, so I will be watching that chat at all times. You can pop comments in, you can pop questions, you can pop oohs and ahs or oohs or whatever you might want to do. You can also give me thumbs up and thumbs down on the cameras. You can frown, you can smile, whatever. Like, so engage as ever, as you need to. So I'm going to get my screen share underway. Now, questions are definitely welcome at any time. So this is a good time, actually, if you've come to the session with like a specific Google Calendar question or pain point, feel free to pop it in the chat now and I'll address it during the session. Otherwise, I'll just jump into it. So just give me a bit of a thumbs up on the screen if you can see that. That's, yeah, wonderful. Can see some thumbs. Brilliant. All right, so let's jump into it. Now, I'm going to confess to you, like, for those that have been in sessions before, you might know I love Gmail, but I also really love Google Calendar. It's probably like a really close second favorite tool, and there's so many things we can do in here. So today, I just want to give you some tips and tricks around working better in your calendar. So first things first, I just want to go through some of the little clever little tools that are hidden in there, the different kind of events that we can create, and then I want to talk to you about how you can use calendar to plan out your time. So we'll put a bit of a productivity slant onto that. So first things I want to show you a couple of things you can do, and one of them I'm going to actually ask if you want me to show you how to turn it on. So that first thing is around working with multiple time zones. So if anyone in the virtual room today does need to work with multiple time zones, let me know in the chat, because I can show you how to turn on some of these features. So there's a couple we've got. You'll see here on the left here, I've actually got dual time zones happening for New Zealand and Melbourne. They're the two time zones I work across the most, right? So I've got them sitting there. So when I'm looking at an event in my calendar, I can see what it corresponds with. But also what I've got is over here, I've got something called the world clock. And I can already see Poo popping some yeses in, so that's awesome. So this world clock here tells me at any one time what time it is in another time zone, right? So I've got New Zealand and the Philippines. But this is where this world clock is super, super clever. Watch it closely. You'll notice it just ticked over to 12:08 p.m. in New Zealand and 8:08 p.m. in the Philippines. Watch those times. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and imagine that we're going to book a meeting for Friday. So as I drag and drop over a time zone, over my time zone on Friday, you'll see that it automatically adjusts the world clock here to show you what it would be in that other time zone at the time you're thinking about having that meeting. So you can call around here and sort of play with different slots and be like, oh, that's a bit early. Oh, hang on a minute. No, that's acceptable. So it's really flexible like that. Now, Anush, could we color coordinate the different time zones? Unfortunately not, which I wish we could, but no, Anush, sorry. So yeah, so that's the two things we've got here. So I'll jump into settings in a minute and show you how to turn those on. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on that. Another little tip that is hidden here in the interface that a lot of people don't realize is this little mini calendar over on the left. You can actually use this to look at any sequence of dates together. So let's just say in November, I just want to quickly have a look at that first 4 or 5 days in November. I can drag and drop over those dates like that, and it will quickly bring up just those 3 days on my screen. So it's kind of a way of creating a short view. So I could even do like 3.5 weeks, and it's going to bring up just those 3.5 weeks for me. And then we can always come back to today as well when we're done. Now, you'll see what it's also done when I've done this is that up here, it's changed my view to 3 weeks. So I can drop that down here, and now I just put it back on week, month, etc. So I'll pop that in there. All right, so that's those two. Now, next one hidden in here is our little time insights. So if we expand this down, and if you're following along in your own Google Calendar, you can have a little bit of a look at this and you might get a little bit of a shock. So the time insights actually shows us how we're using our time. So if we jump in here to where it says more insights, it's going to bring up this panel on the right. Now, I'm going to show you something really cool in a minute with some color, but we'll just look generally at the time breakdown at the moment by type. So you can see it shows me how much time I spend in meetings, how much in one-to-ones, how much in meetings with 3+ guests, and how much time I've got remaining in the week. So this is really cool. Now, if you're using stuff like focus time and that, which I'll show you shortly, this all plays into it as well. So you might get a bit of a shock with the time in meetings, but you'll see it down here, what your daily average is and that kind of thing. And the reason I love to show this is because one of the key principles I teach when I'm helping people make the most of their time is that we need to be really realistic about how much time we actually have. Because what often happens is we start out at the beginning of the week and we're like, oh, great, I want to get these 5 things done this week. And those 5 things in total might require 15 hours of your time, right? And then you get to the end of the week and you get frustrated because you haven't been able to do those 5 things and do those 15 hours worth of work. But when you look at your calendar and use a tool like this, you can see that, you know what, you only had 7 hours this week where you weren't in meetings. So that would make sense that you're not going to be able to complete those 5 things in that 5 hours worth of work. So having this kind of insight is super powerful for you to be able to plan realistically about what you can achieve in the time when you're not in meetings or in store or wherever you might be. So that's just a little bit of a handy tool for that. Okay, so let's jump in and look at a couple of settings and then we'll come back and do some cool stuff in here. So we're going to come up to our little settings cog up the top here and we'll jump into our settings. And we won't go through all of them, of course, but just a couple I want to point out in here. So here where we have our time zones and our world clock, for those of you that were interested in those secondary time zones and stuff, that is where you set it up in here. So you can show your 2 time zones and you can also add extra time zones here as your world clock. And you can have more than 2 there. You can have half a dozen if you want to. So, I mean, I know even in the virtual room today, like we've got people in New Zealand, we've got people up in North Queensland in Townsville. I think last time I had people in WA. So we already know in Australia, we've got half a dozen, well, not half, how many we've got 1, 2, I think we've got 4 time zones in Australia, 4 or 5. So, even just in that, it can be helpful. And then with our New Zealand friends, we can obviously have that there as well. Now, the other couple I wanted to show in here, I'm just going to scoot down. Let me come down here. This one here, reduce the brightness of past events. Now, if you've got it on, fabulous. You can just sit back and relax. If not, I want to tell you what this does and why it's helpful, and you might want to pop it on. So if you're in your settings now, just sit tight. I'll come back in a minute, but I just want to show you on my screen what it looks like. So if I come back to my calendar, you will see if we go, actually, we'll start here. See, today is Tuesday, and you'll see that my events coming up in the week are bright blue. So this one, and this one are bright blue. These 2 are white because I haven't accepted them yet, so you can ignore them. But you'll notice the ones from yesterday are faded blue. So what that setting does, dim past events, is it fades out everything that has already been, so you can focus on today and the future. So if we go backwards, we can see it's all faded. So I find this super helpful in just keeping a track of like where I am, and if I happen to be in last week, I don't get confused and think it's this week because it's faded out. So that's just one I find quite helpful. So if you want to turn that one on, you can just pop down, to reduce the brightness of past events here. You can tick that one, and then you can have that all ready to go. All right, so let's do some other things in here. So I want to walk through the different types of events we can create in Google Calendar, because when we use these different types of events really well, that's when we can start using our, making the most of our time, using our time better. So when we click on a time slot here in Calendar, we get the little pop-up box, and there's a few different types of events that are listed up the top here. Now, we get a similar list when we click on the create button. Okay, we see some down here, different things we can create. Now, in order for this to work really well, what I'd love to make sure you do is that you've got both reminders and tasks ticked over here on the left in your list of my calendars. A lot of people untick them because they're not quite sure what to do with them, but I just want you to have them ticked so that you can see what's going to happen. All right, so now I'm going to come back and click on that empty time slot, and we're going to work through each of these types. So, well, actually, the only one we're not going to work through is event, because I'm pretty sure that we're familiar with this. I know we've got a couple of newbies in the company, but I know that they'll probably also go to Rob's introductory training. If you've not already booked in for that, book into that for that with Rob, and he'll go through all the basics of Google Calendar for you. So we'll leave events off. So let's dive into the rest of these. So the first one here being focus time. So I've mentioned this already in regards to that time insights. So one of the things that we can do with our calendar, one of the things that we take a breath. Often we only use our calendar for organizing meetings. So we use it for keeping track of what we've got to do during the day, when we've got to be in a meeting or something like that. But it's actually a really powerful tool for organizing the rest of our time in terms of when we are going to do the things on our to-do list, right? So again, coming back to that example before, if you start out the week with a plan of 5 things you want to do, the best way to make sure they are done is to actually book time in your calendar to do them. Because when time is booked out, 2 things happen. 1, people can't book you in that time because you've booked it out for yourself, right? So you don't have these unexpected things popping in when you plan to do something. The second thing is, because you've given some forethought to when you're going to do something, when that time comes, so let's say Wednesday, 2 p.m., you've got an hour free. When Wednesday, 2 p.m. comes, you don't waste time trying to be like, oh, well, what should I tackle now? Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, hang on, I'll do some email. And next thing you know, the hour's gone, right? So if you've planned ahead what you're going to do at a particular time of the week, it's much more likely to get done. And that's where focus time can be really helpful. So what it does is it lets you block out time just for yourself. So you can call it focus time, but what I actually recommend is putting in here what you want to do. So I might call this focus time dash Q for planning, for example. Okay, now if you want to, you can actually set this focus time so it will automatically decline meetings if anyone does try to schedule you through that time. I mean, hopefully they're going to check your availability and not, but if need be, you can turn that on. The other thing that's awesome down here is using the description and sometimes the attachments as well. So this is where you can drop in a few thoughts about what you need to do, or maybe break that task down into half a dozen steps. The other thing I really like this for is I often block out just what I call admin time, which is for all of those little pesky little tasks that pop up during the week that you need to do. And if I've scheduled, okay, 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to do an hour of admin time. When things pop up during the week that I want to be able to do during that time, I add them to the description. So when that hour comes, I've got an agenda of what I'm going to do. Now, down the bottom here, you can change the color. Now, this is where I want to show you a super cool new feature has just come into Google Calendar, where you can assign labels or names to the colors. So I used to just use this like salmon color, and now I've actually called it deep work time, or you could call it focus time, or whatever you wanted to. And this then plays into your insights. So you might decide you want this to be blue. That's great, because I like to have it a separate color because it stands out in your calendar as not being a meeting. It's the color of just work time. So if you want to create one of these little labels or categories for yourself, you can click on the little plus, and you'll see I've got my deep work one there. So you can add a color and then you can type in what that means. Either way, I'm going to keep mine on deep work time, click save. So you'll see here, it's in my calendar. It's got the little headphones icon, so it looks different and it's colored different as well. And if I was to jump back into my insights now, up the top here, I can actually get a time breakdown by a color. So I can see how much is default, which for me is meetings, and how much is the pink, which is the deep work time. So you can get a real good feel for your week. Now, I can see we had a question there from Aileen. Can we include more than 2 time zones? Great question, Aileen. So for these ones here on the left in the vertical, no, you can't. There's only 2. But with the world clock, you can have as many as you like. I'm sure there's a limit, but you can have 6, 7, 8. Like, I've not capped over that. So that should be fine. Okay, who likes the idea of focus time? Let me know in chat if that's something either you've been using, you think would be helpful. I'd love to hear if that's something that's useful, and then we'll jump on and look at some of the other options. Thanks, Zoe. That's good. That's good, Rob. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, Andrew's been using it already. Fabulous. Yeah, use it. Yeah, Alex, I like the color too, that new color option. Yeah. Few people using it already. Awesome. Awesome. It is so good. Just giving that little bit of planning. So, all right. So next one along is out of office. So there is an out of office feature in Gmail, which will do that automatic reply to someone. But the out of office in calendar is really good for a couple of reasons. One, it actually blocks out your calendar that you're out of the office. So that's obviously helpful. Second, it can actually decline meeting invitations for you, which the Gmail one doesn't do, right? So if someone just sends you a meeting invite and you're away, unless it's automatically declined, they'll just assume you're not going to come. But, oh, they not come. Geez, how rude, because they didn't necessarily know. So you can decline automatically and you can pop that in there. So that's this one. Now, the other thing it does, or 2 other things that it does, if you're using Google Chat, it will actually show you as out of office in Google Chat, which I think is super cool. Also, it will show you as out of office when people open a Gmail window to compose you a message. So let's just say Rob's out of the office. I open Gmail, I compose a new message to Rob. Down the bottom of Gmail, it will actually show me this message before I even send him the out of office. So I find that, before I even send him the email, I find that super cool, and that comes from the calendar one. So now, I love it. Now, setting my lunchtime, which will auto decline. I love protecting lunchtimes. Very good plan. Now, Anna, can we put out of office on through phone? I'm pretty sure you can't yet. Let me just double check. I'm on Android, and I know they're always different, but, okay. On Android, I can in the Google Calendar app, but I don't know about iPhone. So I'm just holding up my screen. You can see the top one there is out of office. So Anna, have a look. As long as you check, obviously, the Google Calendar app, not just the calendar app, but it might not be on iOS yet. So great question. Thanks for that. So any iPhone users want to check, you can. Cool. Now, next one over is task. Now, I want to talk about task and reminders together, because often there's questions like, well, what do we use when? So task is linked to Google Tasks. Okay, so Google Tasks is a standalone tool in Google Workspace. You can grab it from the little side panel here. You'll see a little task list here, and I'll open that up in a sec. You can also get Google Tasks app on your phone. So Google Tasks is a task list kind of tool, right? So when you add a task here in your calendar at a particular date and time, it adds it to your task list for that date and time. Now, I'm just going to jump out of here and pop into my task list here, because you'll see this is my very messy training task list here. And any with date and times also show in the calendar. Now, you can have things on this task list that don't show in calendar, and that's fine. You can have a variety. But when you do it through this screen, you do need to put that date and time. So now we're not going to go any deeper into tasks today. That's a whole other topic, but that's that really idea of that. And for me too, like the difference between a task and a reminder, a task is something like I need to do that's more than just, generally for me, it's, let me pause and take an example. I often use reminders for phone calls. Like I had a reminder in yesterday that I had to phone the doctors and about an appointment. I don't use things for that for tasks, because it's going to take me all of 2 to 5 minutes, and I know that I've already planned to do it at lunchtime. So I will do a reminder for that, which I'll show you in a sec. But let's just say it's more extended like that, like the Q4 planning or something like that. To me, that's more of a task, right? So, but everyone, you know, each their own, like whatever works for you. So coming back to these reminders, these are super cool. I really love them because they just simple, short and sharp, a reminder that will pop up on your computer and on your phone if you're using the Google Calendar app at the date and time that you've specified with a very specific little title. Eve, I'll come to your question in just a sec. So for example, if I had a reminder here on Friday, so the reminder might be Friday at lunchtime, get meat pies for footy lunch tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to do that at 12 o'clock on September 23rd. I'll click save. So the little reminder is in here. It's a slightly different color. Now, no one else who has access to your calendar sees reminders. They're just for you. But what I love about them is that when you click on them, you can mark them as done. So it's a very satisfying tick off. I've done that. Now, if you don't mark them as done, they stalk you every single day until you finish them, which is why I've got 18 reminders for today, because they're all the ones in training that I've not done. So they just keep coming back day after day after day, right? And then you can go back and you can tick stuff off. Now, Eve, you had a question. Reminder is not available is what you've said there. Was that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So Eve, well, first thing to check is, do you have reminders ticked over here on the left under your My Calendars list?
I've got it. I ticked both. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. All good. So thanks. And thanks for bringing that up, Eve, because that's a really common thing. People are like, I can't see it. And it's because it needs to be ticked. So now, Andrew, I have out of office working location, goal, reminder, task, and event as options for myself. Oh, cool. On the iOS one. Yeah. Yeah, sweet, Andrew. Thanks for popping that in. All right, so last but not least, now I'm not going to go into the full gamut of this in the last 5 minutes. This is actually another kind of short session just on its own, which, Rob, I'm just thinking we might even want to think about that for future. But we do have a relatively new feature called Appointment Schedule. Now, if you're looking at your calendar and yours says appointment slots, you've not yet updated to the new feature called Appointment Schedules. So I'm just going to explain what it does, and then for those that are interested, I'll show you where to turn it on. So basically what Appointment Schedules does is it gives you the ability to let other people book a time with you in ways that you've specified. So they basically get an appointment booking page where they can book a time in your calendar. Now the old appointment slots had some similarities, but it was only useful for people that had Google accounts, and it was quite outdated and messy. This new feature can be used by anyone, whether they have a Google account or not. You can give someone a link and they can book a time with you. So here's what I've prepared earlier. So I'll just quickly show you what it looks like. So this is a booking page that I've got that I would give to other people. So I might email it to them or whatever that might be. They come to a screen that looks like this and they can see my availability. I can have a little message up here. And yeah, I've preset all of this beforehand. So if they want to then go and book a time, they can click on a time slot and a little form pops up where they pop in their details, and I can even ask them for some details, like extra details. So I jokingly said, are you a cat or a dog person? And they pop that in, right? But it could be anything like, what do you want to talk about? Or what store do you work at? Whatever that might be, right? So this is just a sneak peek, but this booking page is super cool. It's just quite a new feature. So I'll show you where to go to get started with it. But certainly really powerful. So if you're not seeing it yet, if you're just seeing appointment slots, we need to jump into the little settings cog, into settings. And right down the bottom of the general section where we were before, there is right at the bottom here, appointment schedules. And we can tick on the option to create appointment schedules instead of appointment slots. Now, what I recommend is if you're like, oh my gosh, I need totally to do this, come in here and turn it on, but also click on the link to learn more about, no worries, Marcus, learn more about using the new appointment schedules, and it will open up a full help page about what to do. So that's the best place I recommend to get started, follow everything through, but yeah, it's a super cool feature. All right, so love to hear what was the most helpful thing for you today. Pop that in the chat as we begin to wrap up for the session. And if there's any other questions, now's a great time to ask as well, whether that be about appointment booking schedules or anything else, let me know. But it's been wonderful to have you all here once again. Focus time for Alex, great. Oh, thanks, Jane. I'm glad. It was a great session. Oh, Jess, I love that. See, time zones is life changing. Jess, you've made my day. It's such a good thing. See, Google Calendar is such an exciting tool. There's so much good stuff we can do in here. So wonderful. People loving that. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, you, oh, lovely, Mark. Thank you. That's very good. Yes, I will see you all again soon. I think for the next 4 or 5 sessions, I can't remember, you might actually have my colleague Adrian, but he's got some awesome stuff. And then I'll be back to you with a couple of sessions a little later in the year as well. So thank you so much, Rob, for recording. And thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful day. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll stop my screen share. There we go. Thanks, Rob, for taking care.